Hello everyone, it is 2 o'clock and we are going to get started. My name is Erica Turner and I will be moderating today's online Microsoft Dynamics GP user group presented by our GP experts, Michael Marinaro and Sharon Paul. We're also pleased to welcome Laura from Altec with us today to chat about document sharing with Bill Walter to discuss some networking topics. To start off with some brief housekeeping, this user group is being recorded and we will be sending out the slides and recording to everyone here. If you have any questions during the user group, you can use the chat box in your GoToWebinar panel and we will take a moment to address them. You can also use the chat if you are having any technical issues and someone from Gross Mendelsohn will try and help you resolve that problem. If you're attending this user group to gain CPE credit, please be sure to engage in all polls and contact us after the user group has ended. If you do not engage in polls and contact us, you will not be eligible to earn the CPE credit for this 2-hour event. To get things rolling, as the moderator of today's user group, I'd like to introduce myself. As I said, my name is Erica Turner. I am an account executive at Gross Mendelsohn Technology Solutions Group. A fun fact about me is that I'm a huge fan of skee-ball. I compete weekly with a local team and I am the 4th-year rating champion. As I mentioned, we'll be joined by Laura and Bill, but let's start with our team at Gross Mendelsohn. I'll go ahead and let Sharon start by introducing herself.
All right. So hi, everyone. My name is Sharon Paul. I'm a partner with Gross Mendelsohn's Technology Solutions Group. I've been with the firm, going on 22 years this year. So fun fact about me is I love to cook. So if anyone wants to trade recipes, be sure to reach out afterwards, and I'd love to hear from you. Mike?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mike Marinaro. I've been with Gross Mendelsohn for over 20 years this December. In my free time, I run a kids bike racing team in addition to working with GP and SQL Server.
Hi everybody, this is Bill Walter. I've been with Gross Mendelsohn going on 15 years now. And other than the things that I focus on dealing with technology, one of my pet peeves is definitely talking to somebody that has a Bluetooth headset on and they're not using it at the time.
Thanks everyone for introducing themselves. We're going to introduce Laura from Altec in one moment, but let's go over our agenda first. Today we'll cover what is document sharing, how to customize your dashboard, how to maintain your network's health, 20 easy tips in 20 minutes, and is moving to the cloud right for you? Let's get started with this polling question, which I think Altec can help us out with. True or false? Getting important documents signed off slows down my business processes. If this applies to you, answer true in the polling area on the webinar panel. Remember, if you don't answer, you are not eligible for CPE credit. I'll give you all a few minutes to respond. Okay, this is a final call. If you're getting the right approvals in a short amount of time slows you down, this is the time to answer true. All right, so we're closing the poll off here. It looks like 69% of you said that this applies to you, whereas 31% said that this is not a problem. For many organizations, getting the right approvals and moving documents up the chain has a major effect on productivity. That's why we invited Laura from Altec here to chat about how to change that by using a sophisticated document management solution. Laura has been with Altec since 2014 as a sales director. She has over 15 years of experience in workflow and content management for many environments. Laura has served as the subject matter expert speaker at many events and is an adept in equipping organizations with state-of-the-art tools and knowledge to successfully streamline business processes, drive down costs, and go green. We'd love for this session to be as interactive as possible, so if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to type that into the chat box. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Laura, who will walk you through DocLink, Altec's solution to document management.
Thank you, Erica. I am now going to be sharing my screen. At this time, everyone should be seeing my screen. If you cannot, please let us know. Erica, we're all good?
Yes, we're good to go.
Excellent. Well, I guess everybody share a little bit of fun facts about themselves, so I better do so as well. Pretty much is my weekend. I have 3 little kids, so my weekend is sitting at the soccer field, going from soccer game to soccer game year-round. And of course, that's my off time. So before we get started, I just wanted to appreciate the opportunity to discuss with you folks tools and that's available today to help your organization to streamline your business process and to have visibility to your documents and better control of your documents and go paperless at the same time. We live in a world today where we have instant access to information. We're used to this. In other words, the minute I get off the plane, I pull out my phone, I want to find the direction, to my hotel, to the nearest restaurant, a recipe on how to make quiche, as an example. So why is it so challenging to have instant access to information within our organization? This is where DocLink comes in play, okay? But before we talk about DocLink, let's talk about how you're managing your documents today. Believe it or not, all of us are doing some form of document management. The file cabinets within your organization, that is a form of document management. But you can see the problem you're running into, searching issue, security to your documents, disaster preparedness. Some of you have those multifunction devices, those big printer, scanner, copy in one. You're scanning documents and you're putting on a network share folder. But over time, though, you're going to be storing more and more documents to that network share folder. And unless you're the person who stores the documents away, you're probably going to experience trouble finding those documents. And finding those documents are not so easy. You're having to browse through the folders, the subfolders, the sub-subfolders. And what about, that document was there last week, or that folder was there last month, and magically it disappeared. It's because we're all happy mouse clicker. We accidentally move things or delete things without realizing. And of course, security to the documents. Okay, how can I restrict so that Erica cannot have access to the document within that client folder? And then also is that you have in-house software application where it has built-in document management solution. Take an example, some of you may have Sage 100 and you have paperless office. Yes, it does have document management, but one is that it only allowed to pertain to document that has to do with that application. And 2, it often is a link to the document. And the document is living somewhere on your network share folder. So there we get back to the security issue. How do I restrict so that Erica doesn't actually go into that folder, on the network share folder, and delete that document or modify that document? So this is where DocLink comes in play. What is DocLink? You have heard of the term document management. There's also record management. There's also content management. Well, DocLink, we're all of that. It's all depending on how you want to use the system. Some of you may be running out of storage space, or you're paying for off-site storage, and you may have multiple offices, and you want just a central place where you can store all of your information and have it searchable. That is document management. And yes, DocLink can be used in that manner. But then there's also, you may have certain documents that by law you are required to keep them for X number of years. Retention schedule. Example, some of your AP invoices or your contracts. You are required to keep them for, I believe, in most cases, 7 years after it expires, and then you need to get rid of those documents. How are you complying with the retention schedule, how you're storing your documents today? So with DocLink, you can use it as a record management system as well to track the life cycle of your documents so that when the time comes, you can purge, find those documents and purge and get rid of those documents. But then also you have these live working documents. Take an example, your AP invoices. They're coming in, they need to be routed around for review and approval and action to take upon. So they're live working documents. Okay. So yes, with DocLink, that we have the workflow components that allow you to route these documents around for review and approval. Okay. Also, we give you the ability to store files in any format. So more and more people are emailing invoices to you. It may be in TIFF, it might be in JPEG, it might be in PDF, it might be in a Word file. So DocLink, we allow you to store files in any format. Some of you may have AutoCAD drawings. You have video file, audio file, Excel report, Word file. All those files can be stored into the system. And that is content management. Okay. At the end of the day, what DocLink is, imagine it as an electronic file cabinet where you're going to be storing all of your information and have it searchable and able to manage them. So you can capture your documents in many ways. If you have them in hard copy, unfortunately, you're going to have to scan them in. If you have electronically, let's say someone emailed the invoices to you, we can import those in. There's no need to print them out and scan them in. If you have documents sitting on your network share folder, you can import those in as well and store it to the DocLink system. The benefit with DocLink is that it's secure in a database. We have full security that's able to help you comply with HIPAA requirements, Sarbanes-Oxley, and other government-regulated policies. Okay. Also, we have other methods of capturing as well, OCR as an example, to help minimize data entry. And through this presentation here, I'm going to show you some of the other capturing methods. But once it's in the system, it's fully searchable. And we're going to talk about the searching as well. But like I said, you're going to have these live working documents that need to be routed around for review and approval. So we have the workflow components. The idea for workflow is it electronically route your documents around for review and approval. It gives you visibility to the documents from anywhere around the world. It gives you a full audit trail, so you know exactly where it's at, who's working on it, how long it's going to take before it's completed. Also, you're going to be able to go and find out who approved off on that $10,000 invoice 2 years ago. Also, we have ways to automate the deliveries of documents. And finally, also is electronic forms. You folks generate a lot of forms in-house. Some might be still in Word format, maybe in Excel format. It might be in a hard piece of paper. We're going to show you how we can create those forms electronically. But before we dive deeper into DocLink, let's talk about integrations. And so the benefit with DocLink is that it's fully code integrated with GP and SL. But it is also integrated with other software applications as well. I believe with most of you, the audience today, you are either using GP or SL, okay? If you do use other ERP software, we can, like I said, schedule time and talk to you specifically about your integration with your ERP. But as I mentioned, we are integrated with other ERP as well. The idea is that you have data reside in your ERP software already. Let's reduce that double data entry. Let reuse your data, okay? Also, the integration, the deep integration that we have with GP and SL, the benefit is you can upgrade your GP or SL at any time, and rest assured that the compatibility between DocLink and your ERP is still intact. Yes, there are a lot of products out there, and yes, they will tell you we can integrate with GP and SL, but they neglect to tell you that it's through a process called screen scraping. Imagine it like integration at the surface. So when you upgrade your GP or SL or the document management system, the integration is broken. So you as a customer will have to pay additional professional services to redo that integration. This is why you see a lot of your peers out there wondering, why are they running on such an old version? It's because they probably don't have budget to redo that integration. But if you use DocLink and you have your GP or SL or like the other ERP, it's fully code integrated, so you don't have to worry about that. You can upgrade at any time. Additionally, the benefit with the integration is that now you have two places where you're going to be able to access your information. You can access all of the documents within GP and SL, but then you have a lot of staff that don't have access to this ERP. So they will search for document through DocLink. Okay. Now, also, imagine DocLink as pipeline of information. Because, yes, we do understand that you use other software applications as well. The idea is when you generate documents from other software applications, we're going to be able to capture those documents and store it into DocLink. At the same time, we can pull data from your application and store it into DocLink. And then we're going to be able to push all that data from DocLink over to your ERP. So DocLink, we can pull data from other software, and then we can push data out as well. So for those of you who use multiple applications, we can talk about it, aside with you specifically. But just to know that yes, DocLink can integrate with other software as well. Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to give you some example how the system can be used within your organization. But before that, okay, why? Why would you want to go paperless? Why would you want to look into a document management solution? Right at this moment, folks, today, there's so many disasters going on. There's a fire in California. There's hurricane going on just a couple of weeks ago or a month ago. Harvey, Irma, Maria, okay. Unfortunately, for some of those organizations, is that if they didn't, have a paperless solution, well, right now, all their documents, their company information are destroyed, and they're gone forever. But if you are proactive and go paperless, all your data is going to be stored in a server. Backup will be done. So if something happens to your information and documents, we can restore those information. So here's an example of property management in the Midwest. They were proactive. They went paperless with DocLink. So one year, a tornado hit their town, and the server actually got damaged. But because they got the backup, we were able to restore the information. So they had zero data loss. What about some of you? You're guilty out there. You're paying for offsite storage. Why are you paying a company, an offsite storage company, to store your information, to manage your information, and to search for your information? Yes, we have another manufacturing company that we're paying for offsite storage, and they were paying $85,000 a year just to store their documents. That there, the $85,000 outweigh more than the cost of the document management system itself. So for those of you who are using offsite storage, I challenge you, find out what you're paying annually for offsite storage. And imagine how long does it take for you to access the documents if you need to. Also, many of you, your company are growing, you're expanding, you're acquiring other companies. So to accommodate the growth, you have to add additional staff, additional AP staff, for example. If you have the tool to help your staff increase their productivity, to increase efficiency, those staff were able to take on more workload. Therefore, you don't have to add additional staff, additional annual salary that you have to pay. So now let's take a look at the system, how it can be used within your organization. We have audience, right now that's in AP, you may be in charge of AR, you might be the CFO, IT, and so on. Please note, DocLink is an enterprise content management system. The return on your investment is that we can help your entire company go paperless. However, most organizations will start the system in the AP side of the house because the processing and the management of your AP invoice is your most trouble spot. But I promise you that once you start the system there, other department is going to see how efficient you are, how quickly you're able to access your information and document, that they are going to want to go paperless too. So the benefit for you is that once you have DocLink, you now can expand that system to other departments, okay? Because DocLink is the core system. It's your file cabinet. So talking about AP invoices, I hear every day, we can't get the invoice approved on time because Sharon's always traveling and she won't approve off on the invoice until she actually sees the invoice. So we have to wait for her to get into the office, which then causes delay. We have to pay penalty fee, or we can't take advantage of early pay discount, or that we have to do a lot of duplicate data entry. Well, we can resolve many of those issues. The idea is, if you create purchase order, we are going to automatically capture an image of your purchase order and all the data about your purchase order into DocLink. There's no need for you to print it out and scan it in. When you receive your goods, your receiving documents, the packing slip, the delivery tickets, those are going to get scanned and stored into DocLink as well. And those are going to be linked to the purchase order and your requisition and so on. So when AP receives the invoice, they have instant access to the purchase order, to the receiving documents, so that they can do the matching. Because if you have multiple offices, okay, AP is receiving the invoice, they can't do their matching. They have to wait until the receiving department from the other offices, send over. They have to wait for the purchase order, which then causes delay. Okay, so AP, get your vendors to email the invoices to you. Okay, if they mail it to you, unfortunately, you're going to have to scan them in. But if they email it to you, it's going to save you a lot of time because you don't need to scan. The idea is we can monitor your email server for a specific email address. So when they email the invoices to that email address, we're going to grab those invoices and we're going to store into DocLink for you. Okay? So once it's in, workflow get initiated. Now workflow can be initiated in two ways. One way is the automated way. As long as you can flowchart out your process, as long as you can identify the task, who is supposed to perform the task, how long do you want to allow them to perform the task, are there any business rules? Business rules like, your rules might be, for any invoices above $5,000, it has to go to Joe. For anything above $10,000, it has to go to the controller and the CFO, and so on. Or you might have rules where you have multiple companies, and AP person 1 is in charge for all invoices for company A, and AP 2 is in charge for invoices for company B. Or you might have alpha rule. All invoices with the vendor name starting with the letter A through M has to go to AP person 1. Anything from N through Z go to AP 2. So at the end of the day, what are your business rules? We then can create a workflow template based on your rules So the minute the invoice comes into the system, we can identify those rules and route it automatically for you. Okay? However, some of you sitting in the presentation today, think that's great, but we're small. We don't have set in stone rules. Sometimes it goes to Joe, and sometimes it goes to Lisa and Joe, and sometimes it doesn't need to go to anyone at all. Well, that's okay. Then we're going to do manual workflow. So I'm going to demonstrate manual workflow for you. The idea is when invoice comes in, we're going to grab it, we're going to store it to the DocLink system. So now, AP, you're going to get notified that there are a whole bunch of invoices that just came in. So now with manual workflow, you look at it, now you decide, okay, for this invoice, I want to send it to the CFO for approval. So you selectively decide who you want to route it to and when from the drop-down list. So now for those of you, the CFO sitting in here wondering, well, how will I know? I'm on the road. How will I know that there's an invoice that's being routed to me waiting for my approval? One way is we can send out an email notification. So in other words, you're not tied to the office. You don't need to have the software loaded. You could be sitting at the beach and still be working, be approving off on these invoices because all you need is email access. Because in your email, we're going to actually attach the document, the invoice in that email. We're going to have information about that invoice. So all you have to do is just open up that email, look at the invoice, and directly from the email, okay, you can approve or reject directly from your email just by clicking on one of those buttons right there. When you click on one of those buttons, it's then going to route it to the next step based on your process, workflow process. Additionally, it will also log in an audit log of when you approved it or when you denied it. This is a wonderful tool, teach auto notification. But you're sitting there thinking, but we get 1,000 invoices in a week. We're not going to want to send out 1,000 emails to the CFO. So another option is we can send out an alert instead. This alert can be sent out on time basis, hourly or at the end of the day or the week. You decide when. This alert just to tell you, hey, John, there are 5 invoices that came in waiting for your approval. One is overdue because you were given 24 hours to act on it. It's now past 24 hours. One's been marked priority because we want to take advantage of early pay discount. We can even add a link on this email. So John just needs to click on that link and it will take John directly to his workflow inbox with a listing of all the invoices waiting for his approval. We have managers using this alert tool for reporting purpose. They want each day for the system to send them a report. How many invoices came in? How many sitting on Joe's desk? How many sitting on Lisa's desk? Why did Lisa process 5 invoices today? She has 1 overdue when Joe processed 10 today and has nothing overdue. So you're going to be able to monitor the workload of your staff. We have customers using it for monitoring of sales orders. They want to know how many orders came in today, how many was processed, how many is overdue. Manager loves workflow because now it's monitoring, able to know the workload of your staff. General staff's going to hate workflow because it's now accountability. So this is just a little quick demonstration of workflow. The key is once you own workflow, you can use workflow for the routing and approval of any types of documents. So yes, use it for the processing and tracking of your sales orders, for approval of contracts, approval of expense reports, approval of new vendors, approval of onboarding of a new staff or vacation requests, and so on and so on. It's endless. So now let's move on. Let's say the invoice is in and it's been sent to the approving manager. That's in most cases. Okay. The approving managers often will write down the GL code or account code on the invoice. And then eventually it gets to AP. AP then have to try and read their handwriting and then input that same data into the ERP. That's double work right there. But the reason why you need to do that is because the approving managers do not have access to the ERP software. Well, we can resolve that. How? Invoice comes in. Workflow will notify the approving managers. Hey, John, there's an invoice waiting for your approval. John, instead of writing down the GL code or account code on the invoice, look to the right here. With our deep integration with GP and SL, we have direct access to your GL master file in real time. So John, instead of writing down the GL code on the invoice, John can just select the GL code from a drop-down list. It's coming directly from the ERP. And yes, we can secure it down so they can have access to only certain GL code only instead of all the GL code. And yes, if there are certain vendors that you do all the time using the same GL code, we can set that up as a default, just like the way you have it in your ERP. Okay. And yes, because our integration with the ERP to reduce data entry, if you type in a company name, a vendor name, it can go to your ERP and it can pull over all the data about your vendor, their payment term, their billing address, mailing address, and so on. And yes, we are compatible with intercompanies as well. So at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're giving you the ability to do coding in DocLink. And no, you do not need to have GP or SL installed on your PC. That's the big benefit right there. Once you're done doing what we call coding, the system is going to create a cover sheet with all the coding information, who did it and when. Okay. If it's routed to the next person and the next person noticed, oh, well, John placed the wrong GL code or the wrong dollar amount, if they have permission, they can update the GL code or the dollar amount or any information really. Okay. This is only if you have security permission. So once you update, the system then will create another cover sheet with who made the change. So you have a complete history. Once everything is all good, you see that import, that green import button right there? Our system is going to push all that GL code information from DocLink over to your ERP. So that AP, you don't have to do that same data entry. You can verify it. If you notice that something is incorrect, you can still make the correction in GP or SL. You need to do it before you post. And once you make the correction, in the back end of the database, GP will update DocLink with the corrected information. So you do not need to make the correction in both places. That's another benefit to the integration. Okay. And yes, we can push all this GL code information over to the ERP in batch mode as well, instead of one at a time. Okay, so that's giving you the ability to do coding in DocLink without the need to have the ERP installed. But you are going to run into some approving managers that will tell you, you know what, I don't want to deal with selecting any code. I like writing on the invoice like I normally do. That's fine. Don't make, you don't want to force people to change, but let's do it the paperless way. We have annotation tools. So instead of handwriting it, type in a sticky note. We have a note box area they can type in their note. They can draw a line, highlight. We have redaction, so you can block off certain confidential information as well. I already mentioned that we have a full audit log that tracks your approval, but we still have some customers say, you know what, I still want to see the actual approval on the invoice or document. That's fine. We have an approval stamp that they can select the appropriate stamp. So based on their login, it will place the stamp of their approval or deny or hold with the date and time and who select the stamp. It's a permanent stamp in the system. So now workflow will notify the AP, and AP, you will go into the ERP and do your normal coding. Additionally, with the workflow is delegation. If you know you're going to be out on vacation or you're out sick for the day, yes, you can delegate your work to other staff. Okay, so you don't have to worry about your workload being sitting there waiting for you for 2 weeks, and then it causes delay. So once the invoice been approved, you go into GP or SL, you process the payment. A feature we have, a unique feature called ERM, where we have the ability to capture an image of the payment along with all the data about that payment, and we're going to store that into DocLink, and we're going to link this one payment to all the associated invoice, because as you can see, this payment here paid for multiple invoices. This is the same feature that we're going to use when you create your purchase order as well. When you create a purchase order in GP or in other software, we're going to capture an image of that purchase order, store into DocLink, along with all the data about that purchase order. Very unique feature. Okay. So that's a little bit about the AP invoice process. Okay. Now, let's talk about searching. I already mentioned that you can have access to all those documents within your ERP. And yes, we are integrated with multiple screens within your ERP software. We're talking about over a dozen screens. We will be happy to provide you with the integration documents with your ERP to show you all the integration points. Now, what about the staff who don't have access to the ERP? How are they going to search for those documents? Well, they're going to do it through DocLink. So here's an example of the user interface for DocLink. Okay. So notice here, with DocLink, we can accommodate multiple companies. So yes, you can use this one system to store all your company documents. When you store documents into DocLink, you need to tell the system what type of document is it. Is it an invoice? Is it a check? Is it a purchase order? Is it a contract? Is it an HR file? What is it? Attached to each document type is a set of defined property values. This is here for searching purpose. Document types here for two primary reasons. When John logs in, the system is going to check which company documents does John have access to, and within that company, what types of documents does John have access to, and what can John do in the system? Can he search? Can he edit? Can he delete? Can he print? Can he email? Down to the keystroke. Okay. Secondly, document types here for searching. I can do a generic search. DocLink finds me all documents within all my company anytime a vendor named Altec was mentioned. Or I can filter down, find for me only the AP invoice within Fabricon company for Pacific invoice number. We can do wildcard search. We can do Boolean search. We can do relational search. In other words, find me all the invoice that we paid last week, last month, or last year. Find me all the invoices that are still outstanding. Find for me all the invoice that's been charged to my department. Find for me all the invoice that were charged to my department for GL code 12345. All kind of searching capability. For now, I'm just going to search for a Pacific invoice. The system now found one invoice based on that invoice number, and here's all the information about that invoice. But maybe Sharon said, well, that's great, but I want to see all the documents associated with that purchase order number. So she just click on that purchase order number, and with a simple click, the system will bring up all the documents associated with that purchase order number. Now Sharon can just select them all. With another click, the system will bring up all the documents on a thumbnail format or tile format. So the idea is, when you create your purchase order, we are going to immediately capture an image of it and store it to DocLink right away. When you receive your good, you do your receiving, we want to store those packing slip and delivery ticket into the system right away, and it get linked to the purchase order. So that way AP, when you receive the invoice, that gets stored into the system, and you get linked to all those documents, and you have instant access to those documents, and you can do your manual matching. And by the way, yes, we can do automated matching for you as well. We can talk about that later. And once you pay, we're going to capture an image of your payment and store into the system, and it's going to be linked to all the associated documents. So you have a complete history from beginning to end. That's a little bit about AP invoices. And yes, we can help you with self-service to improve customer service. Wouldn't it be wonderful for your clients and vendors to be able to search and have access to their documents 24/7 and not able to bother your staff? So through the web, through the mobile app, okay, you're able to search for documents. What about, do you folks have corporate company credit cards? Are your AP staff spending hours or days trying to reconsolidate your corporate statement, credit card statement? We can help with that as well. What we do is we can create a template of your bank statement, okay? All banks now offer the statement in CSV format. So once you're ready, AP, you just log into this DocLink. You're just going to click on the button that said Import. You're going to browse and look for that CSV bank statement. You're going to import it in. Notice here that with this statement, we have charges for Robert, we have charges for Diana and Benjamin. AP, all you have to do is click the button that says Create. With a simple click, the system will create a separate statement per each cardholder with their itemized charges. So now you can use a workflow to route it to the cardholder. The cardholder now can append their receipt for each transaction. And yes, you can do your GL coding for each transaction. And then what we're going to do is we're going to push all this transaction over to the ERP, so you don't have to do the duplicate data entry. What about sales orders and AR invoicing? We can help in that area as well. Okay. The idea is for you to track your orders, where it is in the process, to have quick delivery of your AR invoices to your customer for payment. And of course, wouldn't it be nice when Mr. Customer call you up, hey Joe, I sent you an order 3 weeks ago, what's going on? Joe can just go into DocLink and able to find out exactly where it's at in the process without having to call anyone or tracking people down. The idea is when you process a quote, we're going to capture an image of that quote along with all the data about that quote into DocLink. So now when Mr. Customer sends you a purchase order or a contract to place that order, you are going to store that purchase order or contract into DocLink. Those documents are going to be linked to the quote. And then you're going to go into your ERP. You're going to create your sales order. You're going to create order acknowledgement. You're going to create probably pick ticket and delivery ticket to process the orders. We're going to capture those documents, store into DocLink as well, and link that to your order, to the quote. But we can go further than that. When you create your delivery ticket and pick ticket in your ERP software, your ERP has the ability to add a barcode to those documents. Okay, the barcode probably will represent your sales order number. So imagine when you create a pick ticket, you send it to your fulfillment department. They picked the good, they fulfilled the order, they signed it, they acknowledged it. You're going to batch scan the signed pick ticket into DocLink. DocLink's going to read the barcode. It's going to know, oh, that's the signed pick ticket for order 12345. It's going then to automatically store into the system and link that to the order. Or when your driver delivered the goods and they signed that delivery ticket, then you're going to batch scan those signed delivery tickets into DocLink. We're going to read the barcode. We're then going to link that signed delivery ticket to the order packet. Okay? But you're sitting there saying that great, but our drivers, they lose the delivery ticket all the time. So therefore, AR doesn't know about it, and then they can't invoice. We can help with that. Through the mobile app, you can take a picture. Through our DocLink mobile app, you can take a picture of the signed delivery ticket. It gets uploaded to DocLink. Workflow then will notify your AR to invoice. Folks, we have all the tools to help you to be as automated and as paperless as you want. So that's a little bit about the barcode. So now AR, you receive a workflow notification that goods been delivered or fulfilled. You now need to create the invoice, okay? But when you create the invoice, some cases your customer wants to see the signed delivery ticket with that invoice, or a copy of their purchase order with that invoice. So now you have to get off your seat, you got to go to the file cabinet, you got to find those documents, scan it, or copy it and print it and attach it and so on. And then either open up the email, attach those documents, type in the email address, and email to your customer. That's a lot of work right there. But we can help with that. Folks, all you have to do is to create the AR invoice, and that's it. We have automated delivery capability where, one, we can capture an image of your invoice that you create and store that into DocLink. We will then go and look for the signed delivery ticket that's associated with that invoice. We're going to automatically attach the signed delivery ticket or the contract or the purchase order to the invoice. And then we're going to automatically email it out or electronically fax it out or send it to a default printer for you. So all you have to do is create the AR invoice, and we're going to do the rest. So here's an example of an invoice that was generated in GP. Our system will go and look for the signed delivery ticket and automatically attach it, email it out for you. So no more stamp, no more manual process. It's automated for you. The same tools can be used for the automatic delivery of your purchase order to your vendors, automatic delivery of your order acknowledgement to your customer. Any document that you want it to be automated in the delivery, you can use the same tool. We actually have a customer that they spent $11,000 every year just on postage for sending out invoices. Obviously, they don't have that cost anymore. Big return on the investment. This is excluding the printing, the copy, the paper, the staff time, and stuffing envelopes. This is just postage only. What about some of the concern from the accounting manager? You want to be able to track and know where the document, the invoices are at in the process, okay? To increase efficiencies, to improve accuracy, because the more data entry your staff perform, the more chance for error. Yet all those data is already available in the ERP software already, okay? So we're going to link to your ERP. We're going to pull all those data over to reduce that data entry. We actually have a company, a construction company in Michigan. Today, they actually have stored over 4 million documents into DocLink. Okay, they've taken their company wide paperless. You can too. Security. Yes, with with accounting department, you probably sitting there saying it's not a big issue. We only have a handful of people using the system, so you're not concerned. But imagine, once you expand the system to other departments like HR, HR is the second most paper-intensive department in most organizations. Our system, we have the tool, the security, to help you comply with HIPAA requirements and Sarbanes-Oxley other government-regulated policies. We can control the security of your user down by the keystroke. Okay. We track, we have a full audit log that track who logged in, what day, what time, what action was performed to which document. We can control, can they view a document, can they print it, can they email it, can they edit it, and so forth. Okay. Also, for your supervisor and manager, you can go in and find out where exactly the document's at in the process. So here's an example. You can know, here's some invoices that is at AP for review. I have an invoice that hasn't been approved yet. I have some invoice that just came in the mail that's waiting to be processed. I have some HR letter that is out for acceptance. Visibility, knowing exactly where everything is at without having to pick up the phone and tracking people down. For the chief financial officer is, of course, making sure compliancy, having a good ROI in your investments. So I'm sure you folks get regular audits. How are you dealing with it today? How much time, staff time, does it take for your staff to track down all those documents that has associated with your audit? We actually have a life story. One of my clients, it's an international public company, so they get regular audits. Okay, 1 year before going paperless, they got audited and they were asked to produce a lot of documents because they overspent like $1 million. Well, they weren't able to find all their documents, so they were fined, folks, $100,000 because they were not able to produce all the documents. Of course, the CFO at that point would determine that they will never be fined again. So they went out in research for a document management solution. They looked at many solutions. They ended up with DocLink. From that point on, they have never been fined again, and their number of audits been reduced. How? They provide a login for their auditors, so their auditors do their own searching of documents in DocLink. Some of the auditors can't come into the office, so what they do is they go into DocLink. Okay. So, Sharon, your company been audited. I want you to produce me all the AP documents for all your companies, and those documents will have to be within a certain year. So you submit your search criteria. Click on search. And in literally seconds, folks, the system is going to bring up all the documents that have to associate with that search criteria. In this case, the system found 131 documents. One thing about DocLink, how we're different from our competitor, is our speed of search. Okay, I have been in the industry for over 18 years. I have seen systems that you can conduct a search before you go to lunch, and when you come back from lunch, it's still searching. Kind of defeat the purpose. But with DocLink, as long as you meet our minimum specs requirements, the system will literally find your documents within seconds. We don't care how large the database is. It could be the whole congressional library. We do not care. Once you find your documents, you can print out a report. You can even download those documents or print it out or email it out. When you download, you can even include the DocLink search engine with that too. So your auditor who do not have access to DocLink, they can go into that thumb drive with all the documents. They can do DocLink search, find for me the AP check. Anytime Gross Mendelsohn pay a company called Sinclair. Okay. What about, are you folks still doing your expense report in the good old Excel spreadsheet? We can help with that. The same tool that we use for your corporate credit card, we're going to create a template of your expense report. I, by the way, use this religiously. Because when I travel, I lose my receipt all the time. And when I lose my receipt, I do not get reimbursed. So what I do is when I travel, I pull out my mobile app through DocLink in my mobile app. Notice here, I can search for my my client files. I can have access to workflow, so I can approve off on anything that's waiting for my approval. But then I can also capture documents. When I capture documents, we have some customers using this mobile app. When they go out, their industry is they go out, they do inspections, site inspections, okay? Or I have insurance company where like AAA for claims, they go out and they take pictures of the damaged automobile. After that, it gets uploaded to DocLink and then it gets attached to the claim. For me, I take pictures of receipts. So here I'm traveling, I take pictures of my receipt, then I automatically have my name, the date of the receipt. I just type in the dollar amount and the purpose of the expense. It can then get uploaded to DocLink. At the end of the month or when I'm ready, I log into DocLink. It will then have the receipt with the transaction or the charges. All I have to do now is it will automatically have my name, the expense report number. I just click on Create. When I click Create, the system will create my expense report with itemized charges with the receipt attached. So now workflow will route my expense report to my manager who's on the road, approve off on the expense report, and of course my accounting, the GL code's been done, so it's automatically pushed over to our ERP. So my accounting lady doesn't have to do data entry. So if you need basic expense reporting, same system, folks, okay, same system, but we can help you with that as well, okay. The same system also can help you with HR onboarding. So with our security, we can help you comply with HIPAA requirements and secure your employee files. We can help you comply with the onboarding process and also to help you track with employee certifications, who's active, who's inactive, who's part-time, who's full-time, and so on, okay? When you onboard new staff, there's a lot of action that has to take upon. Did you, in fact, give an employee handbook to the employee? Did you, create a key, an email, and phone, and computers, and so on for that particular employee? And here are all the documents that we received so far for that employee. We're happy to demonstrate HR for you if you like. And another big use, contract management. We can help you in that area as well. We have version control, check-in, check-out capability. Yes, you can use our system to store your executed contract and track when it expires and the retention period for that. But you also can use the system for your draft contract as well. So let's say that Erica, you draft up a contract. It's in Word format. You store that into DocLink. Workflow now will notify Sharon. Sharon then will check the document out. When Sharon checks the document out, it's going to lock that contract so no one else can work on it. They can look at it, they just can't work on it. So once Sharon's done, Sharon checks it back in. The system then will create version number 2, the date and time and who worked on it, and so on and so on. Finally, when you have the final contract, you email it out and the system will convert that contract into TIFF or PDF format for you. So yes, version control, check in and check out to eliminate multiple people from working on the same document at the same time and keeping the complete history of the document. Yes, for those of you who have like AutoCAD drawings, you can store those documents in AutoCAD format. And yes, if you have the native application, you then can check that AutoCAD drawing out, work on it, check it back in, and then you'll have version number 2 of that AutoCAD. Or your Excel report. Just again, example. Okay. Having instant access to document, I mentioned about the web. So on the web, folks, you cannot You can search for your documents. You can have access to your workflow inbox. So yes, you can be overseas, and all you need is access to the internet. You can log into a portal and able to approve off on documents. And yes, on the web, you can also do GL coding of your invoices through the web as well. Through the mobile device, you can, I already mentioned, search, workflow approval, and capture documents as well. Okay. Also, for those of you who are familiar with Solver or BI 360 reporting application, our system is one of the very few that's fully integrated with BI 360. So when you create report through that application, you can, in that report, there will be hyperlinks. And when you click on that link, it will bring up all the documents pertaining to that report. And yet all those documents are living in DocLink. Okay. So at the end of the day, folks, I can show you a lot more. That's just a few examples, is that we have a system that can help your entire company go paperless. Okay. So to conclude, why DocLink? We have been in business for over 30 years. We have over 4,000 clients worldwide. We have a solid, proven system. Okay, we're not new in the block. So we're continuously improving our solution for you folks. Okay. Secondly, is we live and breathe DocLink. We do not outsource any of our services. So between Gross Mendelsohn and Altec, because we're the expertise in implementation, time that it takes to implement the system reduced dramatically. Okay, and we do not outsource our services. We have 24/7 support if that's important for you. So we have two companies to support you, pretty much. So with that said, I said I'm going to go. Actually, let's see here. If you have a moment, Erica, do we still have a moment for me to just do a quick live demonstration? Or do we want to dive straight into quick Q&A, I'm sorry.
I think we only have time for like one question. I think we're running a little bit over on time. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, go ahead. So let's go. We'll jump into questions.
Okay. One question is, in our organization, we ask the approvers to complete the GL account codes, but the accounting people like to select the accounting company and vendor information. Can the coding be shared by both the accounting people and the approvers?
Absolutely. It's based on security permission of who you want to give the security permission to, but absolutely, yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Laura, for that awesome presentation. We're always getting requests for document management solutions, and DocLink is our go-to, so thank you very much. If anyone is interested in learning more about DocLink, feel free to send me a chat in the webinar or email me at eturner@gma-cpa.com. I'd be happy to get in touch with you or get you in touch with Altec and schedule a hands-on look into what DocLink could offer your organization. Before we move on to chat with Mike, let's do a quick poll. This one says, the average office worker continues to use a staggering 10,000 sheets of paper every year. What do you all think? Is that true or is it less? Make sure you select an answer in the panel to get CPE credit, and I'll give you all a few minutes to respond. All right, we have most of our responses in, but I'll give everyone a few more seconds to send in their poll responses. Okay, we're closing the poll. It looks like 72% of you said it was true and 28% said false. It looks like 72% of you were correct. According to the study done by Environmental Paper Network and the World Resources Institute, office workers are using 10,000 sheets of paper a year. I think a paperless solution could definitely help with that. All right, let's move on to our presentation with Mike. He'll be walking you through the customizable features in GP.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Today I'll be talking a little bit about how to customize GP to work a little better for you. We'll be starting out talking about how to add toolbars and modify the toolbars within GP. We'll be talking about customizing the home page and adding smart lists and custom reminders. And we'll be discussing how you can add business intelligence objects such as Power BI or SSRS reports to the home page. And for most of this, I'm actually going to jump into GP and walk through these things so you can kind of see how we do those. So give me a second here. All right, so here we are inside of Dynamics GP. And I'm on the home page here. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize about GP is just like every other Microsoft product out there, you can customize the toolbars up at the top of the window in GP to add things that you would want to use during your time working with GP. So if you come up to the toolbars here and right-click at the toolbar, you'll see there's some out-of-the-box toolbars that are already created. So you have the toolbars for different modules such as financial, sales, purchasing, inventory, etc. And if you click off these modules, it'll actually add a little button bar there. And so by default here you can say I have a journal entry, I have a quick journal entry, I have my detail inquiry, and my financial series posting. I could also add the sales option here as well. Right now you can see at the bottom of my list I have this locked. If I unlock this, I can drag these different aspects or these different options on my toolbar around to kind of customize those and control where things show up on my screen. Within the individual toolbars, you can also customize those to add additional tasks or organize them in a different fashion. So again, if I right-click here and I choose the Customize option, I can select which toolbar I want to modify. So for example, on my financial toolbar, I'd also like to add the inquiry summary as well as the detail summary and move those over into their own little list. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the Add button here. And when you click the Add button, you're given a menu just like you would normally navigate inside of Dynamics GP. So in other words, if I was going to go to the Summary Inquiry screen inside of the Financial Series, I would click on the Inquiry menu. I would go to the Financial Series, and I would choose the Summary option here. Okay, so I can just click OK. And now it's going to add the summary option onto my list here. I'm then going to reorganize these a little bit. So I'm going to move the series post option up. And then I'm also going to click on Modify Selection here and insert a divider line. And I'll move that down. So now I have my journal entry functionality and my transaction functionality here at the top, and then my inquiry functionality here at the bottom. And I'll click OK. And so now you can see my financial toolbar has been customized so that I have my summary inquiry option here and my detail inquiry option, and of course my general journal entry and my quick journal entry options here. The other thing you can do with this is you can customize how these buttons look as well as what shows up here. So if I right click again and choose a customize option, again I'll go back to my financial toolbar here. And instead of saying general, I want it to say JE, but I also want to see text. So if I click on this modify selection option here, I can choose the option image and text. And again, if I click modify selection, and I can click on the name option here, I'm just going to change this to say JE instead of general. So I'll click OK here and OK. And now you can see my button says JE. It still has a little picture next to it, but it gives me some text to let me know what this is. I could do the same thing here with my inquiry buttons. And then I'm going to choose image and text for each of those as well. Okay, and so now I have my summary and detail inquiry buttons here. So this just gives you a way of adding menu options up here to your toolbar so you can get to things a little bit more quickly. You can add anything within Dynamics GP. So if I click on Customize here again, you do also have a custom toolbar that you can create. And again, any menu option that's available inside of GP can be added to this toolbar at the top. All right, the next thing I want to talk about here is going to be about the middle of the home page here, the home page itself. So by default, you can see I have the to-do list here, some quick links, a connect option, etc. Microsoft has some predefined roles that they have set up. And if you click on the Customize this page link in the top right-hand corner and click on the Change Role option, it'll give you the list of industries and accounting roles that you can pick to kind of set a default for these home pages. Keep in mind that if you do change this role, it will reset everything that's already on your home page. So this would be more if you're a first-time person coming in or if you've never used the home page before. But in this case, I'm going to say I'm working in a nonprofit industry and I am an accounts payable manager. So I'll click on that and click OK. And so you can see it customized my home page here. It came up with some payables documents here, some reminders that weren't on my list before. It also customized my quick links here to use things from the payables transaction area. So payables, purchasing invoice entry, payables transactions, etc., vendor maintenance, things that I would use as an accounts payable person within a company. If I click the Customize this page option again and change my role, again, I can change to healthcare and change to a human resources manager. Again, it'll customize this page again where I see things here like employee maintenance, letter writing assistance, etc. And so you can see each of those options there. I'm now going to change this back to accounting manager. Okay. And it's going to reset my screen to the way I had it before. There's a couple of other things that you have here inside of the home screen. Again, if I click Customize this page, the to-do list, we'll talk about that in a minute, and quick links. You can also see here I have things like time management, project time and expense, and procurement. If I'm using those areas of GP, I can have those show up on the home page. So in other words, if I wanted to enter a timesheet into the system, or if I was purchasing part of the and using the purchase order process, I could use any of those options there. You can also control your column layouts, whether you have 1, 2, or 3 columns. That would depend on your display size as well as whether the columns stack to the right or the left or the bottom or the top. On the screen itself here, the to-do area will have some reminders, and if I click on this, I can choose to show Dynamics GP reminders, and here you can see we have some predefined reminders as well as some custom reminders. These custom reminders come from the Smart List area, so pretty much any Smart List that you have that you use, you can add to your home screen and have it populate on the screen that you have a certain dollar threshold or a certain count of items that you'd want to show on the home page. Keep in mind, the more custom reminders you have on here, the longer it can take GP to load, so you wouldn't want to have a ton of them on here. But if you want to be notified when a general ledger account reaches a certain balance or the number of customers who are past due or that type of thing, you can add these to your home page, and a little bit later Sharon's going to talk about that. You can also add different tasks to here, and they could be Dynamics GP tasks that you can assign to any users in the system, or they could be workflow tasks as well. The new GP 2015 and 2016 has a new workflow engine, and those tasks can show up on the home page as well as being able to work through email. The quick links area just uses links to tasks you use most frequently, and these can be tasks within Dynamics GP as well as external tasks. So in other words, if you had an Excel spreadsheet that you use frequently, you could come into here, you could go to external program or file, and you could browse out to the Excel spreadsheet and have that right in your home page within Dynamics GP. I added the time management application here, and so you can see it gives me the possibility of adding timesheets if I was using a GP time management system, as well as the project time and expense and the purchase requisitions areas of GP. And so if you're using any of these modules, you can see it shows up on the home page here, and it'll track those different options within GP. And then lastly, the two areas we have here from a business intelligence standpoint, we have the business analyzer area. And if I click here, it'll give me a list of a whole bunch of out-of-the-box SSRS reports that are available for me to put on my home page. And if I choose one of them, like the sales per month, and then insert that across, and then I can also choose the customer year-to-date sales by territory, and then insert that across. And so now what I've done here on the home page is we now have these two charts here. Let me refresh this. There we go. So we have our sales for the past 12 months and our year-to-date sales by territory showing up here on the home screen. And of course, you can maximize these and make these larger. And these are just SSRS reports. These are available out of the box, but you can also create your own custom SSRS reports as well. So if I wanted to customize this, I have the option to edit this here. I can also zoom into this report and drill down into it using all of the functionality that reporting services would have there. So if I zoom in on this right here, it brings up the report. I can click on individual states and then see the details of those states. And then I can also click on this to drill back into Dynamics GP. And it will let me bring up the customer card that I just clicked on here. So these are interactive reports. If you have other systems that you're working with, such as a CRM system or a sales system, you can add those SSRS charts or KPIs to your dashboard here inside of GP as well. All you need to do is add them inside the proper folder. So in other words, this is getting a little bit technical here, but inside of the SSRS report folder, inside each individual company, they'll have each of the modules listed, and you would just choose if you wanted something to show up inside of the sales module, for example. We would put it in the sales folder, and then in the charts and KPIs area. And if it's in this folder, it will be available inside of GP. It doesn't have to pull data from GP. It could be pulling from a CRM system or any other type of sales systems that you might have out there, or any other database you have for that matter. But as long as it's in this folder, it'll be available inside of GP, and it'll pull data into GP to show up on your home screen. All right, one other area that you can use to add business intelligence objects to GP is the Power BI. And Power BI is essentially a part of Office 365 that allows you to create different charts and that kind of thing inside of Excel or inside of the Power BI module itself, and you can surface those inside of GP also. For example, I'm going to go ahead and pull up one here for you to see. Right. Okay. And so basically this is one I just created pretty quickly inside of Power BI, but you can see here it's got my customers by state, and it's got my sales by state, and it's also got my number of vendors by state here, and these little bubbles here just indicate the volume of sales that I've had for each of these individual areas. So you could create something like this inside of Power BI relatively easily, and then these can be surfaced inside of Dynamics GP on the home page as well. All right, let me switch back here. All right, so we talked about modifying the toolbars inside of GP. We talked about customizing the home page a little bit here. We talked about switching roles. We talked a little bit about smart listing custom reminders, and then the SSRS and dashboards. All right, so we are on polling question number 3 now. And the question here is, taking a moment to build a custom dashboard can increase your productivity overall. So if we just take a minute here to answer this question, a reminder that for CPE you do have to answer these questions as well. All right, just a few more seconds for you to get those answers in. All right, so it looks like most people here have voted, and of course the answer is true. So actually taking the time to customize that home screen to put the shortcuts that you use most frequently either on the toolbars or on the home screen, as well as adding different aspects of the the dashboards, a business intelligence object, can really help you get that information that you need quickly and easily without having to search for it inside of GP every time you log in. So that can really help build your productivity overall. All right, now I'm going to turn it over to Bill Walter, who's going to talk a little bit about network health.
Thank you, Mike. Just a second here. We're going to show my screen. All right, so we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about the nuts and bolts that make sure your GP is operating properly. When we're talking about network health, we're talking about the speed of your machine, the speed of your network, the speed of your server. There are a few things that we can use to help you look at the health of your network and make sure that there's no one piece that's getting in between you and a fast access into your ERP system. One of the things we definitely want to talk about is when you make sure that your network is running at top performance, that you're making sure that you're protected. A lot of times these days, it's really not a question anymore as if you're going to get compromised, but when. So we want to talk about a few things you can do to help avoid being compromised. The number one protection is going to be making sure that your employees know what safe computer habits are, making sure they know not to click on an email that's coming from Microsoft that is easily faked, and then providing any usernames and passwords. Making sure that when they are setting passwords, they're not reusing the same one over and over again. It has some level of complexity, and that passwords that are out, that could be out in the open, are changed on a frequent basis. Another thing that you absolutely want to do is make sure that users have access to only what they should have. So if someone's working out in the warehouse, they shouldn't have access to accounting data, maybe just input and output of orders. But if you only have access to what you need, if that account is compromised, you know exactly what you need to go into to clean that up. Also making sure that your network is up to date with patches, that you have the right security in place. And you need to make sure that that security is set to a level that keeps you protected, but also does not get in the way of you and your users getting their work done. So definitely focusing on ensuring that the network is healthy and up to date is what we want to make sure we're paying very close attention to. There are scans that can be done on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, or even annual basis that will check things beyond what you would be able to do yourself. We use a device called a network inspector, which allows us to do these things very quickly. Again, you can do them as much or as infrequently as you need to make sure that your network is healthy. What we want to drill down into, since we are talking more specifically about the GP side, is one of the most important pieces of the GP environment, which is going to be your SQL Server. So that same network inspector that I was mentioning before will allow you to dig into your SQL Server, and in very short order, whether you do it, again, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, is up to you. But what this will do is let you know from 1,000 different pinpoints what is causing your SQL Server to possibly not perform at its optimal speed. One of the first things you want to look at is what are going to be your top database sizes. I don't know, I don't want to get too technical, but many a time I'll go onto a server and find out that a database or a database log file has just gone completely off the rails. And that's showing that there's problems on the back end that need addressed, not only to improve performance, to make sure we're better utilizing the system. From these reports, you can also see your general overall health. Definitely want to be closer to the green side, but without running it, you don't know, you could be in the red, and just need to make sure you're taking a look so you can clean things up. Some of the high-level points that are looked at beyond the major health points are going to be the file health. So again, is your log file oversized? Are your resources underpowered for what you're doing? Are the SQL Server agents not configured properly to help you maintain your system? Digging a little further down, the report also looks into what your settings are and which settings should or shouldn't be enabled for your particular setup. Getting really further down into the weeds for the file health factors, you're looking at where the database and log files are placed, where your temp files are, available disk space, what the available disk space are, looking at trends, and also input-output. So a lot of times when someone installs a SQL Server, they may not place the database files on a separate partition from the operating system. That might be fine for a small system, but once it grows to a certain level, you're definitely going to see performance issues from that. These reports will definitely help pinpoint if that's one of your problems. Moving further in the reports, we can go really deep into the weeds to look at every piece that this report looks at. But what's nice about it is once you run the report, it does put out the high level, red light, yellow light, green light options, letting you know what you need to focus on. And for the more technical, you can dig in and see every last little point that you need to look at to find out what you need to tweak to make sure your system's running well. So we're going to move on to the next polling question. This one is a true or false. Hackers only target large corporations like Walmart, Sears, and Equifax. Please remember to get the CPA credit to answer these questions. If we included everyone that should be on this list, we would have had to put a couple extra slides in here. All right, it looks like everybody wins the prize on this one. That was it. It was kind of an easy one. Definitely 100% of you answered that this is false. Everybody is targeted, and that is true. As things progress with compromises, we're seeing a lot of malicious users sending out messages to any size, shape organization, and they are bypassing malicious software for socially engineered attacks. So they're asking you to do something that's going to compromise your security. That's why one of the first things I mentioned was making sure we're training the end users so that you are better protected from these attacks. Now we're going to move on to Sharon Paul and the 20 tips.
All right. So I'm going to be going over 20 tips in 20 minutes. I'm going to ask you if you could to please shoot any questions through the chat if you have questions, since this is kind of high-paced. We'll save questions till the end. So system operational tips for GP. Tip number 1. Many people don't know that when you print a report to the screen in GP, that you have the find function available to you just like you do in other applications or other Microsoft programs. So if you printed a long report like a detailed trial balance to the screen and you're looking for a specific account number or a dollar figure, you can use the find button to search. And so it's available at the top of the screen here by just hitting find or Control F. And keep in mind that find is always searching for specific text string. So if you're typing 1000 and you're looking for $1,000 when the display is actually showing commas in the thousands, you're not going to get any results. So you would want to type 1,000 to get results. All right. So the second tip is creating smart report options in GP, because in GP, every report that you run, the standard reports, you have to create an option. And so I'm going to try to shorten that process for you of running reports. If you can use smart criteria in the reports, for example, in this report, it's a historical age trial balance. So instead of going to purchasing report, trial balance, historical aging, and picking that option and running it every single time, what you could do is say age as of end of previous month. That way, typically when you run the historical age trial balance, you're trying to reconcile the prior month. So you're running it in the current month, but you want to have it age as of the previous month. So if you use smart criteria like this in the report, GP will compare this date to the system date when running the report. The other thing you can do, and this is just extending on what Mike went over earlier, is once you have that report option set up the way you want it, you can click My Reports, name that report, and it will add it to your home screen as a favorite report. So here you can see I've added that, and over here on the left, now I can just, from my home screen, single click that report, and it's going to run. And in this case, I ran it as of 9/25/2017 in GP, so GP knew to age it as of 8/31. So it's simplifying your reporting, getting to it with less clicks. And then this is just a second example of a trial balance detail where I wanted to show the salary details for a specific set of accounts. So I've told it to use a restriction of segment account ID from 5100 to 5399 just to show me salary details. So I don't care what the other segments are, I just want to see that natural account, that range. And I want it to run from the beginning of the previous period to the end of the previous period. That way, every time I run this, again, I'm probably running it in the current period, but I want to see the activity for the prior period. So here again, I'm going to click My Reports, and this should be highlighted up here. Click that, add it to My Reports. Then again, it's over here on the left, saved. When I run the report, GP sees the system date is 9/25, and it shows me the activity for August here for the accounts I've specified in that natural account range. All right. Tip number 3 is creating a top 10 smart list. You can use the order by and max records on an option to create a top 10 smart list. So inside of smart list, if you click the search button and you set it to a maximum number of records of 10, and then combine that with using the order by button and tell it how you want to sort the results. So in this case, I have a list of customer balances, and I want to see my top 10 customers that owe me money. Once I've done that and I just click the results, what I can do is add that, extend that, add it as a favorite and a reminder so it will show up on my home screen. So here again, under my reminders, there's my top 10 customer balances, and I just click it and it runs. So you could do that with top inventory, top vendors, whatever you would want to do it with. The other tip number 4 is renaming smart list columns. So by default, all the columns have names here. If you can see, I've already refreshed this and run it, but the original column names, which you cannot destroy in a smart list, if you hit columns, there's the original name, and I just changed the display name to something more meaningful. So here from customer balance, I changed it to outstanding balance. And then I would save that, and every single time I run this smart list, it would change to something that works better for me. Tip number 5, using keyboard shortcuts to quickly open windows in smart lists. So on the left-hand side of GP, Mike talked about adding items to the top, but you can also on the left-hand side, you can add any window. So if you use sales transaction entry every day and you want to get to it quickly, or if you use the smart list, what you can do is any shortcut that you add over here on the right, once you, here in this particular one, I added a smart list and that top 10 customer balances I just added. But what the important thing here is the keyboard shortcut, because you can assign any keyboard shortcut to that item, and then when you're in GP, you just hit that key and it comes up. All right, autocomplete. Autocomplete is used to make recommendations for completing fields based on previous entries, but if it's not properly managed, it can slow down your data entry. So autocomplete setup can be found under user preferences. It can be disabled entirely. By default, it's on. You can set up to remove unused entries after a certain number of days. And you can turn off autocomplete entirely, but you probably don't want to do that because it is helpful. And you can remove all entries that are in autocomplete now to start all over. But more importantly, if there's an item you start to type and you want to get rid of one particular item, all you do is highlight that item. So here I'm looking for sales document, and I type in I, and this one entry came in. I don't want it. So all I do is highlight that entry, right-click it, and remove it from the list. All right. Easy date entry in GP. In any date field in GP, you can hit the plus key or the minus key to go forward or back a day. You can also key in the day number in a date field, and GP is going to fill in the current month and the year for you based on the existing system date that you're using. So in this example, I've typed in sales transaction entry, I typed in 30 for the date, and GP already knows based on the system date, which is a little hard to see there, but it's 9/25/2017, it's adding the month and the year for me automatically. Okay, tip number 8, securing GP fields with field level security. Quite often you might have a field, and in this example, we're looking at customer price levels. If you use the sales module, each customer is assigned a price level. Well, you might let your sales manager change the customer price level, but you might not want the average sales entry person or order entry person changing a customer's price level. So what you can do with field level security is you can assign a password that's required before they can make that change to the customer price level. So to do that, you would go into administration, setup, field level security, define a field level security ID, and in this case, you name it basically based on what you're trying to secure. You tell it what screen in GP or form that field is accessed in. What is the actual field? Its price level. What do I want it to do? I want a password entered before anyone can change that field. And then you define the passwords, and you can set up different password IDs. So what happens then, let's take that a step further, you can assign it by user and security to this. You can assign this by user and security. So you might want, like I said, the sales manager might be able to do it, might be able to change the customer price level, but the average order entry clerk cannot. So you can assign it by user and company. And then as you can see here, I went in to change the price level, and it's asking for the field level security sales manager password. All right. Tip number 9, turning off unwanted reports to speed posting. A lot of times when people start using GP, we tell them to just print all the reports that come out with a posting journal, and it prints lots of reports with everything you post, and then we'll turn them off later. Well, here is where you actually turn off unwanted reports. It's under, depends where you're going to, if you're using the top navigation or the left navigation, but you will get the slide deck, so you'll see the navigation points if you don't see them on the screen in the notes. But this is under either Dynamics GP Tools Setup Posting, or under the administration if you're going on the left, under Setup Posting. And this is where you can turn off reports entirely on the left, or you can say, hey, every time I run this report, ask me where to go to, send it to the screen, print it, put it into a file. I will caution you that whenever you use this screen, don't ever leave this at an origin of all, because you want to go down to the actual item that you're working with. So in this example, I'm looking at when I'm in payables and I'm doing computer checks, what do I want it to do? There's also an option here that says all, and you don't want to use that because there are other setup options you're defining in here. And if you use the all one, it will roll down to everything underneath of it. So you might want to talk to us or talk to your partner if you go to do this, but it is a nice handy tool to turn off unwanted reports. Okay, financial tips. This is part now of the Professional Service Tools library. It's included with every GP user. You just need to install it. But what this does is it verifies the dates that people are using in GP. And it makes sure that they're using a valid year, because I don't know if anybody's ever had this happen where somebody uses an invalid year and you end up with some crazy year in your general ledger. It's very hard to correct. But this not only, if this is enabled, it will make sure that the dates that people enter are in a valid period and in an open period. And if they are not, they will not be able to post the transaction and continue. Okay, tip number 11, preventing sub-ledger reconciliation issues. This is because you typically do not want people posting a direct GL entry to the AR account, the AP account, the cash account, inventory, directly through the general ledger because they're going to throw off your reconciliation between the subledger and the GL. So in order to prevent that, what you can do is unmark the allow account entry option in account maintenance so that they cannot post directly to the GL. A subledger transaction will still be allowed to flow into the GL, but they will not be able to make a direct entry. Whoops, I went backwards. All right. Speaking of keeping subledgers in balance, we're getting to year end, but hopefully everybody does this every month, but definitely going to need to do it by year end. But GP has the Reconcile to GL tool, and it's really a nice handy tool that makes sure that everything in the subledger has been posted to the general ledger. Okay, so it's under Routines, Financial, Reconcile to GL, and you can reconcile to the GL for payables, receivables, I realize this is kind of small, inventory, and bank reconciliation. So in this case, I'm doing payables. All I do is fill in the reconciliation date and the month I'm trying to reconcile. What module am I trying to reconcile? Where's my output file? Because it's going to generate an Excel file for me. And then what is my accounts payable account number? And what happens is when you hit process, it creates a reconciliation sheet. Keep in mind I'm using sample data, so I'm way out of balance. But what it does do is it makes sure, it shows you all the payables transactions for that time period, all the general ledger transactions for that time period. This is what you're looking for, is what's unmatched. Maybe somebody posted something in the subledger, but somehow it didn't make it to the GL, or they posted a direct GL entry. And then GP will tell you what it potentially matched because it sees some similarities that maybe not exact, and then what is exactly matched. So this is really, if you have a lot of volume, this is a great tool to help you reconcile at month end. Okay, correcting a journal entry. GP will let you back out a journal entry or back out a journal entry to create a correcting journal entry. So you would do this right from Transactions, Financial, General. At the top of the screen, you click Correct, and you can choose whether you want to simply back out the journal entry, or if you want to back out the journal entry and create a correcting entry. All right. It'll ask you for the originating year and the originating entry. And so this is helpful if you simply want to back out a journal entry that's been posted. It's also helpful if someone's entered a large journal entry, posted it, but then one of the accounts is incorrect, because then you could create a correcting entry and just fix that one line. All right, copy, paste journal entries from Excel. GP has the ability to copy and paste journal entries from Excel. You would just set up an Excel spreadsheet with these 4 columns: distribution reference, account number, debit and credit. Distribution reference can be blank. And when you go to copy into GP, so you go into a regular journal entry, you would highlight everything. You don't highlight the header, just the data, and click paste, and GP will copy that journal entry in. So nice feature. Analytical accounting. I just wanted to mention that this is available. What analytical accounting lets you do is keep your good way to put it, keep your chart of accounts lean and mean while still tracking dimensional information. So let's say you have your natural account in the GL, but you want to start tracking other information such as projects, or if you're a nonprofit, a program, a cost center, but you don't want to junk up your chart of accounts and create this voluminous chart. So that's what analytical accounting does, is add these dimensions, and you can designate which account in your GL require dimension info to be tracked. So let's say you only want to track dimension or project information. Let's say projects are what you're going to track, but you don't want to put that in your GL. So you track that as one of your dimensions. You can specify that only revenue and expense accounts maybe are going to track projects and not balance sheet accounts. Then you can also budget. You could do budgeting at the dimensional level. So here they're doing it by project and employee. You can import and export a budget. You can also access analytical accounting information using SmartList, Management Reporter, which is usually used for financial statements, and Excel reports or pivot tables. All right. Tip number 16, monitoring cash flow. GP has a cash flow calendar. So if you go to, and a lot of people don't know this, if you go to Inquiry Financial Cash Flow Calendar, you can define an unlimited number of scenarios. And those scenarios are really, if you look over here on the left, I've got a budget. It's just, you're basically telling it what GP should look at. Should it look at receivables transactions when it's going to show you the inflow of cash? Of course it should. But should it show open documents? Should it show unposted documents? Should it show payables? Should it include quotes? Should it include purchase orders? And basically you define all these different criteria, and then you run your cash flow calendar. And so here's, again, sample data. I apologize, but there is some activity here on the 31st. So if you want, you can click on the cash flow calendar. It's showing you inflows and outflows of cash expected in based on payables, receivables, documents. And then if I click on this, it will expand and show me the detail of what makes up that balance. All right, purchasing tips. 17, multiple default purchase accounts. Many people know that in a vendor, you can set up one purchase account for sure. Right under purchases is the one that's used when you enter an invoice. But I don't know if everyone knows that you can click these three dots over here and set up multiple distribution accounts. So for example, Ace Travel, I want to track the travel by different departments. So when I click those three buttons, I'm able to put in all the different accounts I want to use or could potentially use on a transaction for this vendor. Then when I enter an invoice, the distributions automatically pop up, and it's not necessary to use all of the accounts. Using SafePay, tip number 18, to prevent check fraud. It's also known as positive pay sometimes. SafePay, what it does is provide an electronic version of your check register to the bank after you run payroll checks or you run AP checks. Could contain EFT transactions. Basically, you send a file after the check run is done, send that file to the bank, and the bank compares that file information, number and amount, and to the checks that are presented, and they are not going to cash the check if there's not a match. So it does add a little bit of an extra step that you have to send that file after the check run is done, but the safety it provides is worth it. Okay, almost year end, so I thought I'd add a 1099 tool. Part of the professional service tools library, which has a bunch of tools in it, and I think we did a blog article on that, all the different tools it has. But the 1099 modifier is a component of the professional service tools, which is available for no charge. So let's say we're getting to year end, and a lot of people want to use 1099s in GP. If a payables transaction was processed for a vendor that should have been defined as a 1099 vendor, but you never set them up during the year, all you do is simply complete the 1099 setup for the vendor, run this 1099 modifier tool, and it's going to review all the transactions, mark the documents for all 1099 vendors as 1099 documents, and it'll also reconcile those amounts so that it prints the proper 1099 for that vendor. Just want to remind you that Professional Service Tools Library, like I said, is you just need to install it, but you have to be logged in as SA to use the Professional Service Tools Library. You won't even see it, and you always want to make a backup of the database whenever you run some of these things. If you look at some of these, they're pretty neat. You know, they have count code changers and customer number changers and things like that. So, and my last tip is a sales tip, only one sales tip, but we actually had one of the customers who I believe is on the call ask about this the other day. But this is for if people who use sales and you have a lot of maybe underpayments, short pays on your aging, and they're showing up on your aging, maybe the customer owes you $1. You can use a tool in sales to write off documents. It's called the Write Off Documents window, and it will write off outstanding credit or debit balances for one or more customers. So you can specify a write-off limit. You can specify a cutoff date to start for the transactions, and you can specify whether it's going to create one write-off per customer or per document. And then the debit, let me go on here. So once you click this, it will actually bring up a list of what it suggests to write off. You can uncheck the amounts you don't want to write off, or you could click and drill down and modify one of these balances, change the write-off amount. And then a credit memo document, if it's an underpayment, is created and the write-off amount is posted to the GL using the write-up account that you have set up. And that is it for me. We want to see if there's any questions.
Hey Sharon, we do have a question. Do we have to purchase SafePay or do we get that with Microsoft Dynamics GP?
I think it's included now. Mike may know. Mike, do you
Yep,
know?
it is included with Dynamics GP now with the core product. Yep.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, so I'm back again talking about the cloud, and everybody wants to move to the cloud these days and get their data off-premise and run GP from anywhere at any time. And so the first question we have here actually is true or false? The cloud grants access to GP files anytime, anywhere. So you could just answer that polling question. All right, great. Looks like most people have chimed in here on this. 83% voted, and most people said true. And yes, it is true with a few caveats. Of course, you have to have internet access. You have to have access to the cloud in order to get to stuff that's on the cloud, but it does give you access to it pretty much anytime, anywhere, within reason. So what we're going to be talking about today is how you can deploy GP in the cloud. So basically what this is, taking your GP installation and having it somewhere off-premise. You won't have to have servers on site. You don't have to worry about maintaining that infrastructure. You don't have to worry about updates and that kind of thing. So there's a couple of different ways you can deploy GP in the cloud. The first is using the GP web client. So with the GP web client, it gives you access to GP using browser access. So you can use basically any modern browser. It could be Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, Safari, etc. And you can access GP using the web client. The second way you can do it is with the GP desktop client using RDS, and that's Remote Desktop Services. And so essentially what you're going to be doing in that case is you won't use a web browser, but you'll connect to a GP installation on a remote server that essentially will be a full desktop version of GP that you're going to be connecting to, only it won't be on your local computer, it'll be on a remote server somewhere hosted. And then you can also do a hybrid deployment. So in other words, you could have a few users who are using a desktop client and the majority of users using the GP web client and have that all in the same environment. So the first thing is the GP web client here. So the benefits of the GP web client, of course, you can access GP anywhere you have internet access in a web browser. So you don't have to have any type of installation on your local computer. Basically wherever you are that has a web browser, you can go and look at things there. There's also single sign-on with the GP web client. In other words, you use whatever login you use to get onto the network will also give you access to Dynamics GP. So there's no separate GP logins to remember. There's also some new search functionality in the GP web client. If anybody's ever used the add-on that has the mentor option, basically what it lets you do is if you're looking to make a general journal entry, you can just type in general and it'll pop up the different options that you have in order to run those tasks that you want to do. And then the last benefit here on this slide is that there's a lower overhead per user than RDS. So in other words, in terms of processing power, memory, disk space, that type of thing, your servers can be a little bit less powerful using the web browser than they would have to be with RDS, so you can save some resources there. There's a few drawbacks to using the web client. So the first is that Integration Manager will not work with the GP web client. So if you have different types of integrations where you're importing things into Dynamics GP, you'll have to use another type of integration method such as GP Web Services or eConnect or that type of thing to bring data into GP. The Integration Manager integrations will not work. If you want to modify reports or modify screens using the report writer or modifier, you would have to do that on a full desktop client. Once you modify the reports or the screens, they would be available within the web client, but you can't make changes to them from the web client. You have to change them first and then deploy them out to the web client. And then the fourth one here on this screen is that VBA modifications will not work with the web client. So even if you customize a screen to use VBA, those modifications will not work if you're using the web client. Management Reporter would still have to be deployed as a full installation. However, you can view reports from Management Reporter, you just can't create new reports. Also, the grant management module, the invoicing module, and the AFA or MDA modules are not available in the web client at all, and currently there are no plans to deploy those in the web client. So. All right, the second option, of course, the GP desktop client with RDS. So this is a full GP desktop client as if you're working at your own desk. It does require a full installation of Dynamics GP and Microsoft Office on the remote server. However, you do get full Integration Manager and Management Reporter functionality with that installation. So basically it works exactly the same as GP has worked for as many years as you've been using GP. There is, however, a higher per user hardware requirement than the GP web client. So just to give you an example, a server that could host about 25 users in a GP web client would probably be able to host half that many users on an RDS client. So there is a pretty high per user cost requirement there. And then a hybrid deployment like we talked about. So the desktop client versus the web client, which is the right option for you? So the questions that we have here, so are you a power user who requires the ability to run integrations, create GP, Management Reporter reports? If you say yes to that, then your only option is going to be to use the desktop client. You would not be able to use the web client in this scenario. You would be able to use the web client in certain situations. In other words, if you're off-site and you want to just look at, do a quick inquiry or something like that, you'd be able to use the web client in that situation, but not for any of these functions. Do you do a lot of data entry and do so quickly using a 10 key? If you're a person that's been doing data entry your entire life and can enter in an AP invoice in less than 3 seconds, you're not going to want to use the web client. There's going to be some delays there on the data entry side that you're going to want to have the desktop client. And so for you, the RDS option is going to be the best option. Do you use the grant management, invoicing, AFA, or MDA modules? As I said before, those modules are not available in the web client, so you would have to use a desktop client to get access to those modules. And lastly, does your company have modifications to any of the screens in GP using a VBA? If you have VBA customizations, those VBA customizations will not be available in the web client. Again, you could still use GP in the web, it's just any VBA modifications that you have will not work properly inside of the web client. So again, if you answered yes to any of those questions, you'll need to use the GP desktop client. That doesn't preclude you from going to the cloud. You can still go to the cloud using the RDS solution. You just wouldn't be able to use the web client. Okay. All right, polling question number 6 here, our last one for the day, I believe. So you can have either a cloud version of GP or the desktop version. True or false? All right, I think most people here have voted. We'll give it a few more seconds. All right, poll is closed. All right, and the answer to this question is false. It's worded a little bit strange here, but if you do host GP in the cloud, you can have 2 different clients. You can have the RDS client and the web client both deployed in the cloud. But if you deploy GP in the cloud, you wouldn't be able to have an on-premise version. So I think the wording there that I had for that question is a little bit confusing for some people, which is why we got the results we had. But yes, if you have the cloud version of GP, you can run the desktop client as an RDS, but you can't have both GP in the cloud as well as GP on-premise at the same time. All right, with that, do we have any other questions here? I know we're right about at our time limit here, but we certainly have some extra time for questions if anybody has some questions. All right, I see a couple of questions here from Hussein. Yes, the presentation is being recorded and we will send a link out to all attendees afterwards.
Mike, I have a question. Out of the cloud, hybrid, and purchased infrastructure options. Out of the cloud, hybrid, and purchased infrastructure options, which one is the most expensive up front? And does that end up saving me more later?
Sorry, between the cloud.
cloud, hybrid, and purchased infrastructure options?
Okay, so it really depends on how you're deploy it. So the ROI, of course, as you go over time, is going to be less with the hosted solution and for buying servers on site most of the time. And we can certainly help you with that as we're going through. If you're thinking about deploying new servers or hosting in the cloud, we can help you with getting set up if you don't already have a hosting provider, we can help you with a full GP deployment from soup to nuts all the way through the whole thing. And we can certainly help you with those ROI type of investigations to see what would be the best solution for you in that regard.
Awesome, thank you. And another question, do you offer on-site training?
Yes, we do. Anytime you want off-site training, you can contact any of us. Our contact information will be at the end of the slide deck, and we'd be more than happy to come out and do on-site training with you on any number of the GP topics that you would like information on.
Perfect.
All right, are there any other questions? Okay.
All right, now that we've reached the end of today's webinar, I want to start by thanking our guest presenters, Laura and Bill, for joining us today. We're so grateful that they could lend us some time to teach us some new tricks about document sharing and network health. I'd like to give a huge thank you to Mike and Sharon for sharing their insider GP secrets with us. Getting a chance to learn from their many years of experience is always a treat. If you'd like to reach out to any of our experts with further questions or comments, you can contact them with this information on the screen. To get in touch with me at Gross Mendelsohn, please feel free to shoot me an email at eturner@gma-cpa.com or give me a call at 410-685-5512. And as a final reminder, we'll be sending out the slides and webinar recording to everyone who was on the webinar today. If you're looking to gain CPE credit, please be sure to reach out to us to get the credit you need. I'll leave our contact information on the screen for another few minutes in case you need to jot anything down, but this will conclude our today's user group. Thank you again for attending, and please feel free to reach out to any of us if you have any questions.